All right, so let's go over this one. This one, I want to go over like using sample libraries and adding more realism to them. We know the typical like play with your dynamics, play with your expressions and your panning, things like that. But I want to go over some stuff that you might not really know that often. But first, let's play this piece and see what this piece sounds like. Okay. Now, I do have two versions of this piece, and I kind of want to play both versions. And when I play this other version, I want you guys to decide on which one you think is the better version eventually. Because I use two different sample libraries for both versions. But here's the other version. So you guys decide which one sounds better. But let's get on with this. All right. So the biggest thing I find to help usually with things like making it sound more realistic. So let's see. So you use the BBC Orchestra for this one. Turn off the reverb, the internal reverb on the plugins, right? That's number one. Number two, this is I'm gonna use originals, the string section, right? Number two, if your plugin has it, this is what I do. I turn off all the room reverb, turn off the stretch, and I put the close mic at 100%. I find this to be those two things to be the biggest things. You turn off the reverb and then you move the close mic up. And I feel as though when you do that, you get the most realistic strings you can possibly get. Or a realistic instrument in general is by turning off all the other mics besides the close mic. To me, that gives the most realistic, right? Of course, you want to play with your dynamics and expression. I don't think I modulation down here. It's on one of these channels. Anywho, it's on one of these channels. You can see it the main window. Anywho, those are the biggest thing. Now the next biggest thing. Okay, so what we did dynamics, we did expressions, we did turning off reverb on the internal plugin, and turning off room mics, all the other mics besides the close mic. The last thing is mixing sample libraries. I lost myself for a second. So as you can see here, I have contact. If I'm not mistaken, this is session strings, because I like session strings. I like they pluck strings. Oh no, this is mallet flex. Never mind. Never mind. Maybe I'm tweaking. This is mallet flux. As you can see, I got the mic down on closest. I go to FX. The reverb is off, as you can see. So you're gonna mix different sample libraries together. Originals, mallet flux. This one I believe is tremolo session string. This one I know it's session. My head is everywhere right now, guys. I'm sorry. So I'm mixing different libraries together, right? Now this one, some libraries you use is not gonna have the mic placements and stuff, so that can be kind of an issue, but not really because as long as it's gonna be mass with the rest of it when you're doing your mixing, right? Now generally, I need to do a video on my mix template. Generally, I have three verbs. On this particular track, because I hurried up and composed it for this video, I only have one. But the verb I used, generally you're going to have like a room verb, a hall verb, and something even bigger like a chamber or a cathedral verb or something like that, right? This one is a hall verb. And I used the preset film music hall. So like little tweaks like this, and also, the panning, getting the panning correct. Key tip, you could get you orchestral layout, right? Let me see. BBC Symphony. It actually has one. So these are orchestral layout. Think of this, all of this, as your panning. Because you want to pan it. You want to pan all your orchestral instruments in a way where it sounds realistic, like you're a listener listening. What you're seeing here is the actual space where orchestral instruments sit, and when it plays back to you, you're going to hear certain things more on your left side versus your right side if you're sitting in front of listen to music. So you can use this as a diagram to pan your orchestral music and where they need to fit in the space. So piano was the closest, right? It's best to show you this. Okay. So like, for instance, violin 1, right? So we're going to use this as violin 1. Put it at stereo panning, and you might pan violin 1 similar like this, right? So you can go through and you can set your panning. Now, where it's placed is what you're going to do with the verb, right? Because reverb is front and back. Panning is side to side from a mixing aspect, right? So if I want my verb to sound closer on this, if I want my instrument to sound closer, I'm going to dial the verb down some. If I want my instrument to sound further, I'm going to dial the verb, like with these horns, I'm going to dial the verb up until I put it where I want it to be. So like how you have violins 1 and the horns, they're going to have the same pan, but the horns are going to have more verb on them to push them back in the back, if that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining this well. I really do, because it's not complicated. It's actually very simple, and just get your orchestral diagram, or you can use this when you set up a template, and you can set your pans and your verbs based off of that. And like I said, you're going to have 3 verbs: room, hall, cathedral. You might use cathedral on horn. You might use the room verb on horns if you're using staccatos, or even like with violins if you're doing staccatos, or you're doing plucks, or you're doing what am I thinking of? My brain's going bad. Like short, when you're doing like short sounds, right? You're going to use like a tremolo, right? Or trio. You're going to use more of a room verb to bring it more up front, versus when you're using legato, and you're going to use more like a hall verb to push it back a little bit. So keep that in mind as well, based on how you're playing the instruments, where they need to be as well. And that's really like the 4 tips I have for orchestral realistic sound with sample libraries. Quick piece composed just for y'all. I have the same piece. I moved this MIDI over to my actual template, and I let you guys hear that. You have 1 and 2, so let me know what you guys think. Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video.